Hello there. Writing this post here was not my first choice, but I have grown to believe that this is a safe space. I've been going through quite a lot of emotions recently. A lot of things that happened in my past resurfaced, causing that trauma to come back. I don't know how to deal with the present situation, so some advice would be helpful. A few things about me that are important for this post would be that I'm 31, female, and I'm a divorcee. This entire thing is basically about my ex-husband and in-laws. So Linda, not her real name, my mother-in-law, was not my husband's biological mom. She was his mom's best friend. And after she passed away, Linda took care of my husband. A few years later, she got married to my father-in-law, and they had my sister-in-law. Although she was not his biological mom, it always seemed to me that they share a great bond. I knew that my husband loved her more than anything, and she never let him forget about her countless sacrifices. After my marriage, I do not recall living in peace for one single day because of my mother-in-law. No matter what I did, she was never pleased. She had made up her mind to be my enemy for no reason at all. I felt like Linda felt some sort of authority over her son and did not want to let that authority slip away because of me. I was not trying to steal her son. I was just trying to be a good wife. I really believed that everything could be sorted and she was just being overprotective. I mean, we have all heard about mother-in-laws getting overprotective when their daughter-in-law comes home, but soon I realized that this was not the case. There was something deeper and I was just wanted to unravel it. It felt like she was protective, but not of her son. Basically, her entire behavior seemed fake to me, like really fake. And as it was fated one day, I accidentally heard a terrifying conversation between her and her daughter. So she and her daughter were planning to take away the entire property. I could not get into the details to understand what their plan was as they caught me standing at the door. I had not planned on all of this, so I was not prepared. My mother-in-law literally yanked me and started screaming. I pushed her away and told her that her secret was going to be exposed in front of everyone. My sister-in-law started explaining that I had a misunderstanding, but I told her clearly that I was sure of what I had heard. As we were arguing, my husband came home. I was going to explain things when my mother-in-law started crying hysterically to the point where she fell. My husband rushed to her as she started cursing me. My husband was very confused. I tried to explain things again, but my sister-in-law shut me up while my mother-in-law said that her heart was breaking for my husband. I was confused as to what she was saying, but I told him everything that they were plotting and how she had so many dirty tricks up her sleeves. So she continued with her lies and said that she caught me cheating on my husband. My sister-in-law shamelessly supported her as both of them weaved up a false story about how I arrogantly pushed my mother-in-law as she tried to reason with me. I was taken aback at this, but I was not backing down. So I tried talking to my husband, but these two women did not let me utter a single word. Every time I started speaking, one of them would either start crying or curse me. If that was not enough, they would continue with their lies and keep on slandering me. So I started screaming and told my husband that he must believe me as they were only planting false stories to hide their crimes. My mother-in-law went to my husband and looked him straight in the eye in an attempt to manipulate him. She started her melodrama with cliché sentences about how much she sacrificed for him and how she always treated him as her son, so there was no possibility of her even thinking of something as vulgar as this. I tried hard to reason with my husband and make him understand, but he did not listen to me. He did not listen to one single word and blindly believed his selfish family. I felt like I was stuck somewhere without any hope. I tried really hard to explain it all, but it was clear that he would not listen to me. He chose to believe his family over his wife. And not only that, he started yelling at me for disrespecting his mom. His mom took the perfect opportunity to bring in the most dreaded word: divorce. She was quick to say that a divorce was the only solution left, and my sister-in-law agreed. Then she started talking about how she caught me with another man trying to infuriate her brother. I started crying and begging my husband to hear me out. I looked at the two evil women standing and asked them if they had any proof. To this, my mother-in-law asked my husband if her words had lost their meaning now. She started getting emotional again and manipulating him by saying that she would always want to see her son happy and that she did not need proof for her son to believe her. And as you all may have guessed, he believed them. And that's how I got divorced. There, I said it all and emptied my heart. I will not go into much detail regarding the healing process because it was the most difficult thing I've ever had to do. Thinking about it makes me feel like crying. Just know that it was not easy. I changed my job and went to a different city. My husband went no contact with me and I was miserable. For 3 long years, it was difficult to trust someone or open up, let alone think about the possibility of dating anyone. But life was going on and I was surviving. Slowly, my spark was coming back, and so did my ex. Yeah, that happened. I did not want him to come back to me. There was a long time when I expected him to be there, but he was not. I cried myself to sleep, and it made me believe that our relationship was over. With time, things were starting to feel normal again. But then there is my ex, contacting me, showing up on my porch, crying and begging for forgiveness. He gave a really long speech, both in person and over text, where he appreciated how good I was and how evil his own family were. He said that they robbed him of everything except for me, so I corrected him and said that they robbed him of everything, including me. Should I have been more considerate? Update 1. It's been like 3 days and things are not changing. My ex-husband did understand after I repetitively told him that I was done and was not coming back, but he wasn't looking like he was convinced. We had a chat and he told me that his stepmom took everything away and, like a fool, he gave in to her manipulations. I guess that's what we do when we love someone, and he was completely in love with this selfish woman. He admired and adored her and never thought of her as a stepmom. For him, it was his real mother, only if she had shared similar sentiments. But what happened to me was not okay either. I was simply slandered and tossed aside. Being my husband, the least he could do is hear me out, but he didn't bother to do that either. He believed all those terrible things about me and doubted me. Even if I tried to forgive him, I would never forget this humiliation. I was bitter towards him for years, but seeing his condition made me realize that I don't need to be bitter. Karma balances everything. I read about the concept of karma recently, and it has been enlightening to say the least. Update 2. It's been a week since I had that conversation with my husband, and things are simply weird at this point. He expects me to be his friend, at least, if I'm not willing to go back to him. I mean, that's what he said. He's really miserable. He told me that all his friends have suggested that he sues his stepmom for unlawfully getting his signatures and taking over the entire property. But he doesn't have it in him to face her in court. So I, as someone who has been the victim of this evil woman, decided to try my hand at explaining things as well, and somehow he was convinced that suing her would be the right thing. However, I told him that I will stay far away from this case as I don't want any new drama in my life. He asked me if I didn't want to see her getting punished. To this I replied that for a long time I did because I wasn't able to let go and that hurt me. I'll be glad if she gets what she deserves, but I do not want to be associated with it. It will only bring back the bad memories and I don't want that. I've picked myself up all alone after a lot of struggles, and I'll not let anybody push me back into that zone again. That's not happening. All right, guys, I'm back after what? A month? Probably. My ex-husband finally heard everyone and sued his mother-in-law, and as per what I've been hearing, he will probably win the case. Now, that would be fun. As for me, I'm staying away from it, and I've instructed my ex to also understand and respect my privacy and boundaries. As for life, things are going pretty normal except for this entire drama. I don't want to deal with these anymore. I want to live my life peacefully, far away from these people. So that will be all. My story. Thank you for listening and thank you for writing such sweet and supportive words. NTA, I perfectly support your decision not to get into all of this. There's no need to go back to the same things which trigger you. You don't owe anything to anyone. As for your ex-mother-in-law, trust me, she will get what she deserves. NTA, your husband, although himself is going through stuff, kind of deserves it for what he did to you. Things are falling into place, girl. You're strong, kind, and beautiful. Don't let anyone pull you back, queen. Sending virtual hugs. NTA, I can't imagine how it must have felt to be sidelined like that. You deserve so much better in life, and I know you'll get it all. It's a very smart choice to not get into this mother-in-law drama. Nothing is more important than your mental health. We stand a smart queen here. Next story. I, female 25, have been dating my boyfriend, male 26, for about 2 years. Prior to our meeting, I had been in a 5-year relationship with my ex. My ex came from another country on another continent, so his native language and his culture were extremely different from mine. Me and my ex both came from a non-English speaking country, and I rapidly started learning his mother tongue and picking up a lot of his culture, food, manners. I traveled to his country about 5 times and lived there for 3 years as well. So when we broke up and I went back to my country, I spoke the language fluently and had picked up the culture. For example, I would mostly cook food from my ex country as it was really good and I got used to it. Anyway, I met my current boyfriend. He comes from a different country as well, but he grew up learning and speaking English at home. He also speaks another language with his family. When I met him, I forced myself to stop using the culture of my ex as my boyfriend didn't like the food and found a lot of other things weird. At the same time, I got busy and stopped practicing the language I had spent nearly 4 years learning. Long story short, I recently realized that I couldn't speak the language fluently anymore and freaked out because I spent lots of time, money, and effort into it. So I decided to start learning the language again. And at the same time, I started living the way I used to live prior to meeting my boyfriend again. AKA, I have started cooking old dishes, watching a lot of movies from my ex countries, etc. I feel like I'm reconnecting after a long time. Well, multiple times my boyfriend said this is disturbing to him and asked if my plan was to get back with my ex. He said that's the only reason I'm probably learning the language again and picking up the culture again. He said that because it is not my own culture, I'm being really weird and a bit of an a-hole for using another culture. He also mentioned the fact that I haven't started learning his own language. The reason why I haven't is because first, there aren't many resources. Second, he, his family, and everyone around him speak fluent English. And third, I have told myself that I would learn it if I get married to him. He is really pissed at me, and no matter how many times I try to explain that the only reason I'm learning the language again and using the culture is because I spent nearly 4 years of my life experiencing this culture. And not only did I get used to it, I also enjoyed it a lot. I'm torn as I can understand my boyfriend's point of view, but at the same time, I don't think I'm doing anything wrong. Edit. Forgot to add that while I haven't started learning my boyfriend's language, I have learned a lot about his own culture and have been cooking traditional dishes for him pretty often. On his side, he has neither learned my mother tongue nor my culture, so I also don't feel like he is being fair either. Edit 2. Thanks to everyone who commented. I realized that I'm not crazy and will have a talk to my boyfriend to answer a few questions. I started learning the language a few months before meeting my ex. It was a dream I had as a kid to learn this language. I just happened to meet my ex and he helped me a lot with becoming fluent and being exposed to the culture. Not disclosing the languages, but as I mentioned in a comment, my mother tongue is a European language. My ex's language is Chinese. NTA. So basically, your a-hole boyfriend wants you to completely assimilate into his language and culture, but wants you to excise 3 years of your life spent in another country, which you enjoyed, for his comfort. Is that about right? Honestly, if you enjoy that culture and language and your boyfriend is upset over it, dump your boyfriend. Maybe find a boyfriend who at least isn't threatened by your enjoying that language and culture. I guarantee if you did marry him, he'd insist you never again speak that language or enjoy aspects of that culture. Decide if you want to permanently abandon them. If not, dump him. NTA, since you already speak the language, why would you lose that skill? It's easier to reconnect with the language than learn a new one from scratch. He sounds like very insecure. Next story. Backstory is I'm 33, female. Brother, 38, male, has had a drug problem for a number of years and has been arrested multiple times for possession and theft, but never actually served any significant jail time because of plea deals and opting for longer stays in rehab facilities over short jail sentences. He always inevitably goes back to using, though. And his son is actually under my care after he was removed from his and his girlfriend's home when they were arrested for child endangerment for using with my nephew present. I was told when I agreed to take custody of my nephew that neither my brother nor his girlfriend is allowed to visit without a social worker supervising. If they found out either was visiting unsupervised, they would remove my nephew from my care. That hasn't been an issue with his girlfriend because she basically ran off once she had the opportunity. But in the random spans of time that my brother has been clean, he has visited with supervision. Recently, my brother was arrested again and is in jail until his hearing or until someone signs him out. There is no bail associated, but the catch is that you have to agree to be responsible for him, either by signing him into rehab or by allowing him to live with you. Obviously, none of his druggy friends has the ability to sign him out because of their own issues with the law. So he called me and asked if I could sign him out. I told him no, that I wasn't willing to agree to be responsible for him. He said it was a non-issue because he was going to go back to rehab. I said that I hoped he did, but that I wasn't willing to put my name on the line, and therefore what little security my nephew has, on his word, because he's lied to me before. He called me an asshole, said I wasn't being supportive of his efforts to get clean, and that I needed to stop holding his disease against him, and he hung up the phone on me. I feel bad because I more than anything want him to get clean, and I'm not sure that will happen in jail. But he's also been in rehab before and nothing has changed. AITA? Edited to add. Wow, this blew up way more than I expected. Just for some clarification, I would never agree to let my brother live with us. I made that mistake in the past, before my nephew was born, and I've learned my lesson, especially now with the risk to my nephew. If I were to sign him out, it would only be with the intention of bringing him straight to rehab. But there is nothing forcing him to stay in rehab. And I'm not sure what the consequences would be for me and the custody over my nephew if he disappeared from rehab and wasn't living with me, which is why I didn't want to get involved at all. Thanks to all of you for your advice, kind words, and well wishes. It is greatly appreciated to have confirmation that I've made the right decision, even though it hurts to do so. Opinion 1. NTA, he proved time and time again that he's not to be trusted. Unless he truly hit rock bottom where he has no one, homeless, etc., he will not change. Use tough love. Also, I'm not sure how your brother is, so I hope you mind your security these days more. Addicts with resentment is a bad mix. No telling what they'll do. Opinion 2. Oh, so sorry you were put in this position, OP. NTA, you are responsible for a child and made your decision for that child's security and well-being. Well done. This can't be easy. Your brother is an adult and is responsible for his current situation, even if he has a disease that keeps putting him there. Hold firm to being the trustworthy adult your nephew needs. Opinion 3. NTA, you are doing what you need to do to protect your nephew and yourself. Your brother is attempting to manipulate you. Do not let him do so. Stay tuned for more stories from our girl relationships.